A report came out in the last couple of days showing that the Ahsoka series dropped approximately 40% of its viewers from when the series debuted to when the series had its finale, and had about a 40% drop from the finale of Mandalorian Season 3, which in and of itself was already a significant drop from previous seasons of The Mandalorian. Now, look, just full disclosure here, most of you guys who watch the show on the regular basis know that I was actually really surprisingly excited for the show. I love the trailers. I really love Rosario Dawson, and I liked her iteration of Ahsoka very much. And full disclosure, I didn't like the show. I didn't think it was the worst thing I've ever seen, but I personally did not like the show. And I had some issues with it that I thought were going to probably affect a lot of other people. And apparently it did. This comes to us from Screen Rant, who writes the following. Samba TV delivered disappointing news through an infographic highlighting the Ahsoka finale's viewership numbers. The post reads, the finale of Ahsoka landed on Disney Plus last week to 863,000 U.S. households, not 863 U.S. households. This means that despite the Ahsoka premiere beating the Mandalorian Season 3's premiere, the spin-off show ended the season down 40% compared to the latter show third season finale. This was a major viewership loss for Ahsoka, which debuted on Disney Plus with 1.4 million households, representing a nearly 40% drop. So, as you sit back, now listen, let me be very clear about something as well. Even with that drop, there are some shows that would love to have 800,000 U.S. households watching them. It's by other TV standards, that's still a good amount of people were watching it, make no mistake about it. But the question becomes, if Ahsoka was able to debut right around the same numbers as Mandalorian Season 3, which was already low for the Mandalorian series, but still, why did its finale, why did it lose so many viewers over the course of it running? Now, somebody yesterday, I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday and telling them that I was going to kind of be discussing this today, and they sent me a video by a popular YouTuber by the name of Star Wars Theory. Now, Star Wars Theory and I don't agree on a lot when it comes to Star Wars, but I really like their breakdown of this quite a bit. I thought they were very even, balanced, and fair when approaching this. But watching that and reading the stories, it got me thinking about what led to that. What led to, so many people starting with watching the show and then abandoning it by the time it gets to its finale? I want to propose 3 different reasons why Ahsoka lost so many of its viewers from the beginning to the end. All right. Reason number 1, Star Wars, and this is more of a macro level thing, but Star Wars in and of itself is not in a super healthy place right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, Ahsoka, forget the prequels, forget the sequels. Ahsoka was coming on the heels of what I think most people would agree was a substandard series or season of Mandalorian, right? I think most of us love Mandalorian, but I think most of us would agree, to whatever degree, that Mandalorian Season 3 was a step down from the quality of Mandalorian Season 1 and Season 2. Whether that means slightly less good than the first 2 seasons, or whether that means Season 3 sucked. I think most of us agree that Season 3 was not up to the standards of Season 1 and 2. You add on top of that, the fact that Star Wars in and of itself just hasn't been in a great place health-wise, quality-wise. They've had some great stuff. Ahsoka, Andor. They've had some terrible stuff. But just overall, the quality is not so great. So reason number 1, in no particular order, but the first reason I'll give for Ahsoka's losing thing is that Star Wars in and of itself is not in a really healthy place. Even the fandom is certainly not in a healthy place. You're safer to hang out in a toxic swamp than hang out in Star Wars fandom these days, but it's just not in a healthy place. Reason number 2, and this was a reason that I was worried about when they announced what this show was going to be. See, I, like some other people, got kind of excited when I realized it was basically going to be Rebels Season 5. because I loved Rebels. I actually thought Rebels was quite good. Actually, I hated the Ahsoka character until Rebels. Rebels is actually the series that got me on board with the Ahsoka character. And so I was kind of excited about it, but I, and a lot of you guys, were a little bit worried that would being basically a continuation of Rebels alienate other people? Because let's face it, in the grand scheme of things, not an ass ton of people watched Rebels, right? We are a segment within a segment, those of us who watched and enjoyed Rebels, or Clone Wars for that matter, right? So would that alienate? And what I heard from many of you guys, and when I read in a lot of online discourse, was people watched Ahsoka because they saw her in Mandalorian, and then they abandoned it because they didn't know what the hell was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They didn't know what was going on. So they tried, but unlike Mandalorian, where they launched it with all new characters nobody ever heard of and all that kind of stuff, they told the story from a fresh page and from a fresh perspective. Like nothing happened in Mandalorian where you had to feel like, I don't know what's going on. Like they made it clear. Whereas, when Sabine sees Ezra for the first time, my heart smiled. But anybody else who didn't watch Rebels is watching that, and they have who's the fuzzy-faced guy? Why do we care? All that kind of stuff. And
the show doesn't do the work.
Reliance on people already of watching it is the fact that there was an entire episode in the Ahsoka series, right? The one with Anakin where they did the flashback to Clone Wars. It was nothing but a complete fan service episode. It actually had nothing to do with the storyline of this season. And, a lot of people would fire back at me when I'd say that, and they go, no, John, you don't understand. It's about Ahsoka getting closure and getting peace about the guilt she felt. Okay, but that was a storyline from another show.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That had nothing to do with this show. Imagine, if you will, if we're watching a Mandalorian season 4 and Luke comes back and then they take an entire episode of Luke finally going to Tashi Station to get some power converters.
Oh, he's had it coming for so long.
That's right. It was.
Well, yeah, now that you mention that sounds great.
Yeah, there's your next series, right? But had nothing to do with the story of what's happening in Mandalorian, but it was it was a fan service thing for people who watch Clone Wars. This was a continuation of that. But that just kind of highlighted how a lot of audiences felt alienated and had no idea why they were supposed to care. And they abandoned it before they got to the end. And the third reason I'm going to give is a purely subjective one, and many of you may not agree. It just wasn't a great show. Its dialogue was... its dialogue, yeah, was in many places just cringy as hell. And there was just a number of big plot holes that I complained about a lot, and all that kind of stuff. Now, what it had going for it, though, what Ahsoka had really going for it was I think it was very effective for who Dave Filoni was targeting, which is that segment within a segment of people who watched and adored Clone Wars and Rebels. And I think if you were a hardcore fan of Clone Wars and Rebels, I think there was a lot in there that would make you smile and make you come out enjoying it and liking it. The problem is when you focus on a segment within a segment, you're not setting yourself up for success moving forward. Unlike Mandalorian, which brought in droves of new fans, Ahsoka was like, this is a members only club. Mm-hmm. And if you're not already in the club, there's no room for you here. So I don't know. Sean, you and I have never spoke about the Ahsoka series. I honestly don't even know if you ever watched it and if you did, what you thought of it. But when you see these numbers about how by the time they got to the finale, how it compared to the finale of Mandalorian, how it compared to the premiere of the season, what would you attribute that to? And maybe how do they course correct that as they move forward? Guys, we want to take a second and thank a sponsor of today's video, Quip. Guys, good health starts with good habits, and Quip makes taking care of your oral health easy by delivering all the oral care essentials that you need to care for your mouth. They've got an incredible electric toothbrush with timed sonic vibrations with 30-second pulses to guide a dentist-recommended 2-minute clean. Guys, it's my favorite toothbrush I've ever owned. And who likes flossing? I don't, but this water flosser hits all the right spots with gentle or deep cleaning pressure at the touch of a button. But guys, then there was an additional surprise. Quip also supplies mints and gums that are fantastic. Every time you pop one of their new mints, you'll be caring for your mouth inside and out. Bold mint flavor keeps your breath confidently fresh, and you'll get a boost of vitamin D. And their gum prevents cavities and freshens breath when chewed for like 20 minutes after eating. It's sugar-free, is tooth-friendly, and has 0 calories. So guys, if you go to getquip.com/Campea right now, you'll get 20% off any electric toothbrush, mint and gum dispenser, and water flosser. That's your 20% off any electric toothbrush, mint and gum dispenser, water floss at getquip.com/Campea. Spelled GETQUIP.com/Campea. Quip, the good habits company.
I'd say none of this is terribly surprising to me for a variety of reasons, many of which you just touched on. As for me, I liked the show more than you did. I thought it was good. Certainly not great. And there were just a lot of unforced errors, just odd choices that alienated people. Like I went into it like excited because from the trailers, you could tell this aesthetically feels very classic Star Wars. Space wizards, lightsabers, galactic threat. And then of course the promise of Thrawn. There's a lot in here that's like, oh, this could be really cool. But as you said, it's designed for people that watched 5 seasons of Rebels and 7 seasons of Clone Wars. There's so much homework that you have to do to understand the show, and the show itself doesn't do the work to bring people in. So the whole show is about finding Ezra and Thrawn, but it doesn't tell the audience why that's important.
Good point.
It doesn't tell us why is Thrawn a threat. There's 6 canon books about Thrawn. Not even talking about the one in the 90s. Just in the current continuity, there's 6 books about his relationship with Anakin, his relationship with Darth Vader, his people, and his actual plan. None of that is in any way communicated in this show. We're just supposed to know things, why he's a threat, what he's up to. And he makes these looks and he says, oh, it's Anakin's pupil? And we're supposed to know why he knows any of this. It doesn't do any of the work itself. The other thing, just anecdotally speaking, The Mandalorian was a really special show for my family because it was the first time that both me and my son were excited for a new show that was coming out. So for the first 2 seasons, we woke up 6 a.m. Texas time, watched the episodes before my son went to go to school. That was really special. He had that helmet on your desk. He's got one of those. He wore it to church on a Sunday. Like, he's just obsessed with The Mandalorian and all this stuff. This is his on-ramp for Star Wars. And my middle child wanted to name our youngest child Ahsoka Tano when she was born. So there was like all these reasons we were really excited for the start of the show. Started with 4 family members watching it. By the end of the first episode, my son is checked out. He wasn't interested. By the end of the 3rd episode, my daughter that wanted to name her sister Ahsoka Tano said, this show is boring. They made Ahsoka boring. And then by the end of the season, my wife didn't watch the finale. So it was in my household, we had 75% drop off. I thought it was good.
Anyway, what would you say though? Because look, right now, Dave Filoni has got, forget all the other stuff that might happen on Disney Plus. Dave Filoni they've announced this Mandoverse Star Wars movie. What do you think are some of the course corrections maybe, or what would be say one key course correction they need to make as they're approaching this, announced movie that they're going to do?
I think they need to get back to designing Star Wars for this.
Right.
That's what made like Star Wars, the original trilogy, and really all of the Skywalker saga is designed for this. Some of them alienated for different reasons, whether you had issues with the prequels or Last Jedi, but they're designed to be these movies that are billion-dollar spectacle films, broad-reaching, epic storytelling. And even in what we're going to talk about later on about rebooting Star Wars, one of the statements that Matthew Vaughn made in the interview leading to all of that, he said they need to get back to making epic stories again that are designed as on-ramps and not dividing the audience, not designing it for segments, but what are actual on-ramps that everyone can enjoy. And that's what The Mandalorian was. As I said, it was literally the first time my son went, oh, that looks cool. I want to check that out. And it finally brought the Star Wars fandom together for a couple of seasons for a little bit there.
Yeah.
But then it started splintering again. And as much as I love Andor, I think it's fantastic, but it's also something that it's a different genre. It's not really space fantasy. And so even that, it doesn't bring the audience together. And they need to find that way that unites them with broad storytelling that's an on-ramp for everyone, but also pays things off.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.